Okay, so this video is page 4 of the basic skills test, problems number 14 through 19. And we're going to start with problem number 14, which says 2 2/5 times 3 5/6. And remember the instructions said to find the solution and write it in simplest form. So the first thing we need to do, if you want to multiply mixed numbers, you have to actually change them into improper fractions before you can multiply. So this 2 is the same as 10/5. Right? And I already have 2/5, that's 12/5. I can think of 1 is 5/5, so 2 is 10/5, plus 2 is 12/5. Some people use the shortcut of 2 times the denominator plus the numerator, so 2 times 5 is 10, plus 2 is 12. But it's helpful, in case you can't remember which you're supposed to multiply and add, to just think of this as 2 is the same as 5/5 twice, because 5/5 is 1, so that's 10/5. So I have 12/5 times, and then I can do the same thing. 3 times 6 is 18, plus 5 is, this would be 23/6. And then, if you remember from the other, when we were just multiplying fractions, we multiply the numerators and we multiply the denominators. But if we want to make our multiplication easier, we can factor out certain numbers. So I could notice that I have a 6 in the denominator, I have a 12 in the numerator, and so I can factor 6 out of each of these. So I have 2 times 6 is 12, 1 times 6 is 6. And then I look at everything else, and I have a 5 here, I have a 23, and I have a 2. There are no other factors that I can factor out. So I multiply the numerators. 2 times 23 is 46. 5 times 1 is 5. And now I'm supposed to write this in simplest form. 46 in the numerator is larger than the denominator of 5. So I can say, well, 5 times 9 is 45. So that means this is 9 and 1/5. So my answer would be 9 and 1/5. Okay, this is problem number 15, which is 6 3/4 divided by 1 1/8. The first thing I need to do is, it's very difficult to do operations with multiplication and division with mixed numbers, so I want to change these into fractions. 6 times 4 is 24, plus 3 is 27/4. And that's divided by 1 1/8, which is 9/8. Right? 8/8, because 1 times 8 is 8, plus 1 is 9. But this is division. In order to make this easier to do, we've changed it to multiplication, and we do that by multiplying by the reciprocal. So now I have 27/4 times 8/9. And then I can look at this and I can say, well, you know what? I could multiply 27 times 8, and I can multiply 9 times 4, and then I'd have a real mess over the other side of the equal sign, which I'd have to simplify. Instead, to make this simpler, I can just factor things out of the numerator and the denominator. So I can say 9 goes into 9 once, 9 goes into 27 3 times, 4 goes into 4 once, 4 goes into 8 twice. Then I just multiply the numerators. 3 times 2 is 6. Multiply the denominators. 1 times 1, 1. So my answer is 6, because I'm supposed to write it in simplest form, so I don't need the denominator of 1, so I just get 6. Okay, this is an example like problem number 16 on the basic skills test. This I have 56, right, and I have tenths, hundredths, thousandths. That's 56 thousandths plus 3,709 10,000ths, right? And I need to add those. And what I want to do is, I'm better off if I write it vertically. So I want to think about, here's where my decimal point's going to be, and I want to line up the decimal points. So here I have 0, 0, 5, 6, and then I have okay, so now the first thing I need to do is add. This is the 10,000ths place. Add what's in the 10,000ths place. There's nothing here. I can put a 0 there. Okay, I have 0 10,000ths in that number. So I have 0 plus 9 is 9. 6 plus 0 is 6. 5 plus 7, 12. So I regroup, and I have 1 and 3 is 4. So I have 4,269 10,000ths is my answer. This is problem number 17 on page 4 of the basic skills test, and I have 17 and 5 thousandths minus 94 hundredths. And in order to do this problem, the first thing we want to do is rewrite it in vertical form and line up the decimal points. So we need to make sure that we line up the decimal points. So I have 17 and 5 thousandths, and then I have 94 hundredths. And I'm going to subtract. When I go to subtract, there's nothing here. I can put in a 0 because 94 hundredths is the same as 940 thousandths. So I have 0, 5 minus 0 gives me 5. Now I want to say I have 0 hundredths here. I have 4 hundredths here. I can't subtract those, so I need to regroup. I'm going to make this 6, and then I would have 10 tenths, but that still doesn't help me out. I still need something in the hundredths place. So I regroup, so I have 9 tenths, and then I have 10 hundredths. 10 hundredths minus 4 hundredths gives me 6 hundredths. Then I have 9 tenths minus 9 tenths, 0 tenths. 6 minus 0 is 6, and 10 minus 0 is 10. So I have 16 and 65 thousandths. Okay, this is problem number 18 on the basic skills test. We're trying to multiply these two decimals. So one way to think about this is I could easily say that this is 15 over tens, hundreds, thousandths, 1,000 times 375 over 100, because it would be 3 and 75 100ths. The benefit of thinking of it this way is now I can say, all right, I'm going to multiply, if I were going to solve this, I could multiply 15 times 375. So I do that multiplication, 5 times 5 is 25, 5 is 32, 318. And I add these up. So now I have 5,575. But then I would have to multiply 1,000 times 100, which gives me 100,000. So that means if I want to write this as a decimal, this is 5,575 over 100,000. So that means this needs to be in the 100,000ths place. So I have tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000ths, oops, too many. Tenths, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000ths. So my answer is this. That is the same as, sometimes people say, oh, I need to count the number of decimal places after the decimal point. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's where those 5 places come from. So that's why this works. The last problem is 1 and 32 hundredths divided by 1 and 1/10, and we need to figure out how to solve this problem. Something to keep in mind is that if you think of, let's say 6 divided by 2, that's the same as 60 divided by 20. Okay? As long as I multiply both of these numbers by the same amount, the answer ends up the same. Okay, so that's that's a key concept when you want to try to do this division problem. Because I can take this division problem and I can say, well, erase this over here. This is 1 and 32 hundredths divided by 1 and 1/10. And just like when I said 6 divided by 2 is the same as 6 divided by 20, well, 1 and 32 hundredths divided by 1 and 1/10 is the same as, if I multiply this by 10, I get 11. If I multiply this by 10, I get 13 and 2/10. So 1 and 32 divided by 1 and 1/10 is the same amount as 13 and 2/10 divided by 11. So now I want to put my decimal point up here, just so when I get my answer, I know where the decimal point goes. And then I say 11 goes into 13 once. I have 11. And I subtract. 11 goes into 22 twice. And I end up with 1 and 2/10 as an answer.